Tonight we're going to be talking about how a lot of people have been asking themselves if it's even worth being a screenwriter in the current state of the industry and the market, so to speak. There's been a big slogan going on since like the strikes called Survive Till 25. Basically, just survive the sort of fallout, so to speak, of just the industry related issues until the year 2025. We're here now, and people are asking, is anything going to get better? One thing that I do want to say is that, there's when it comes to being a screenwriter, you're kind of in a different category, so to speak. For me, I'm always going to be writing screenplays pretty much until the day I die. So to me, the market doesn't really matter. If it's very lucrative at the moment, great. If it's not, so what? I'm still going to sit down and write scripts because it's something that I've always enjoyed doing. Writing has always been a hobby, a passion, and something that I would at some point like to make a career out of or have some sort of like real success with it in terms of like financial success. I think every writer wants to experience that at least once because it would be nice to have a moment in your life or career to where you can be sort of financially set to do more writing. That's kind of my thought process on it. So for me, if you're kind of the person that really enjoys writing scripts and you're going to keep writing scripts and you're going to, when you have one that you feel really strong about, you're going to push that so that you can hopefully sell it or get it made. But even if that doesn't happen, you're still going to continue to write scripts. I don't think you really have to worry about the industry and where it's at in the market because you're always going to be there writing regardless of that fact. The other thing too is, not to sound super cliche, but nothing lasts forever and everything goes in cycles. In the 90s, it was the year, the decade of the specs where, tons, however you want to quantify tons of writers were selling spec scripts for large amounts of money. It continued on through like the early 2000s. It was very, very unsurprising for somebody that didn't really have a writing background or didn't have any credits to get a script in front of a producer and sell it for a lot of money. It was a fairly common thing to where you really knew that you could have a chance to have it happen to you. Obviously, over the last decade, if you want to say times have changed, it's become harder and harder to do that. And we've reached a point where maybe it's at its rock bottom and maybe it's at its hardest and its worst. And if you weren't already incubated in a very, very good situation, you're probably struggling right now. And there have been writers that had growing careers where they were maybe not at that like very comfortable level yet, but they were getting there. And some of them in the past couple of years have had to take, normal jobs and have had to kind of rethink if they want to still be part of the industry. Some of them have left and all that. And so, eventually at some point it's going to kind of return to what it was like prior to that. It's not going to be the same thing, but it is going to get to a point where writers can make a lucrative career out of this in a very accessible way that you would hear about in the 90s and even through the early 2000s. And so from my perspective is it's always the best time to write. One, when the market's doing really well, it's the best time to write because the market's doing well and that's your best opportunity to get something. We can never really predict the future. This may last the next 10 years, but at some point, things do end up changing. You look at history constantly and things always swing left and then they go swing right. They swing center forward, center back. So at some point it will become a place of lucrative ventures again. But even during the time where it's not, like right now, it's also the best time to write. Because the last thing you want to do is when the market shifts, whenever that is, 2 years from now, 15 years from now, you don't want to see that shift and be like, wow, I could have had 5 scripts at this point that would have been really good for me to put out in the market right now. So as a screenwriter, I feel like if you're asking yourself that question, I think what you should really ask yourself is, why is this something that you really enjoy and want to do, just from the purest form of it, which is the writing aspect. Because I know a lot of screenwriters that have quit screenwriting and don't write scripts anymore, and it becomes kind of apparent at that point that this was more of a utility thing than it was an art or a creative thing. A lot of them told themselves it was an art and creative thing, but clearly it wasn't. That doesn't include screenwriters who necessarily quit the industry or left, but are still writing scripts in hopes that maybe someday they can come back, or they just do it because it's a good creative outlet for them. But ultimately, if you're asking yourself, is this is it even worth it? Ask yourself, like, why do you write, or why do you feel compelled to write a screenplay? Is it because you're really just, oh, maybe I can make a career out of this, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if it's purely career driven, then yeah, you probably shouldn't. It's probably not something you should continue to pursue. I'm just going to be honest. And you should probably try to find something that it does have sort of the financial benefits that you're looking for currently, because who knows how long this can last. And the other thing too is, if it is something that you really enjoy doing and you want to keep doing it, but you want to find financial success in it, in order to stay motivated in this, you have to tell yourself this is the best time to write, because of the chances of finding financial success at this moment, based on what the market is and based as it's perceived, especially for many of us that aren't really high up in the food chain. You probably have the most freedom because of the fact that there is no market. You can kind of do whatever the fuck you want, and you can write however you want, write whatever you want, and really be free, and really use this time to write without any fear or hesitation or concern of whether anybody's going to like your writing or not. It's the best time to really be without restrictions. And because usually when the market is really great and a lot of things are selling, they are following a much more rigid criteria. And that can often stunt creativity, because you are kind of forced. I use the term forced loosely because it's ultimately up to you to cater to what the market wants and what the market is seeking. But as things get sort of quote unquote bad and people aren't really selling or buying anything, you can just write whatever you want. And I think this is like probably the best time to become a screenwriter, because I do think there is no pressure for you to sell because nobody's buying anything. There is no pressure for you to live up to a certain thing because the market is so trash and so kind of fucked right now, that it allows you the freedom to really, really develop without any chains, so to speak. So as far as these sort of ideologies, whenever I hear things like survive till 25, it just goes right over my head, because I understand what it means, but I'm also just like, there is no surviving. I'm just doing, because this is what I want to do. This is what I love doing. I love meeting other writers. I love helping other writers. So it's not even survive till 25. I'm going to do it regardless. And I understand, like, survive, it's like, there's a financial angle to that, but to see the forest from the trees type of thing, especially with these type of volatile industries, you have to really look not just at the big picture, but really like, what are you doing this for? If this is a real creative outlet for you and a creative pursuit, then really the market should almost never really affect you. And so for those of you that are asking, like, should I do this? Is this something? It's a normal question to ask, but I think it's now also time to ask yourself, like, is this actually like a passionate thing? Do I really get joy out of this? And if the answer is yes, then don't ever ask yourself that question again, and just continue to write and be creative and use it as an outlet. Um, because life is too short to be too influenced by financial stuff. Obviously, it's a big part of our lives. We all need money, but you have to find balance in that. So, um, yeah, in my opinion, I think if you're really like a ride or die type of screenwriter, writer in general, every period of time is the best time to start to write. It's always lucrative for you, whether it's financially or creatively. So, uh, hopefully, some of you can find a more clear clear answer for whether or not this is something you should do, and hopefully, my perception of this, what the current market is, was helpful to that. So